What's going on, kings and queens? Thanks for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. It's time for us to take a moment, kick back and relax, put our feet up, lean back, close our eyes, whatever we need to do to relax. Get in the bed, on the couch, on the sofa, on a back porch, wherever it is, you can find a calm place to sit for a few minutes. Get you something cool to drink, get you a glass of wine, a cup of tea, get you a cocktail or that mocktail, whatever you need. Right now, I'm still drinking on some mushroom tea, mushroom coffee, or one of those type of things. It's a mushroom mix. It's supposed to help me out. So I'm always down for anything that will help me out. It's been the first week of school, and I feel like I was thrown down on the floor, stumped, and beat with a stick. Every part of my body is just sore and aching. So it's been a tough week. It's been a tough week, but hopefully it's going to get better. So later on, I'm going to have to get a little bit more than a glass of wine. I'm going to have to get that cocktail. I'm going to have it because I need to rewind. And I'm all about keeping it copacetic and trying to prepare for the next week. So, anyway, before we get into chapter 7, let's do a short recap on chapter 6. In chapter 6, Eva picked up Ernest. Well, no, she kind of met Ernest at a Starbucks, and they went for a drive, and she was going to take him around to see some sites for his barbershop, for his spa, and to see what he would like and if she could find something that interests him for the spa. So they went around. They went to several places. I think it was maybe the fourth place that they stopped, and it was the perfect place for Ernest, the perfect place for the in earnest gentleman spa. But then after that, Eva kept on going, and she said she had someplace else to show him. She went to a house in Brentwood, and there she pulled out the stops, and her seduction began. And so Ernest kind of got the feeling, well, if I don't go along with this, is she gonna pull out of the deal? What am I gonna do? Pressured. He kind of felt pressured. So he went on and did what he had to do, or at least what he thought he had to do. So let's go ahead and get into chapter 7. All right. Are you sure you don't want me to go to the hospital with you? Rochelle asked him. It's no problem. I can drop EJ at my cousin's house. No, you don't need to do all that, Ernest assured her. The doctors told her it would be over in less than 2 hours and she can come right home afterwards. I'll probably stay over there for a while. Why don't you just bring her over here? Rochelle suggested, feeling excluded. She'll be more comfortable at home, Ernest said, going out of the door. And although Ernest felt like he could handle everything with his mama at the hospital without any help, the real reason he didn't want Rochelle to come with him was because he was afraid. He was afraid she might be able to sense something was amiss. He was feeling paranoid about last night's indiscretion. To him, her eyes were like ultraviolet lights. They could visualize Eva's handprints on his body, or that her nose was like a bloodhound's and could detect faint residues of perfume on his skin. Being in the same room with her made him uncomfortable. When Ernest got to the duplex, Sheila was sitting in a chair on her stoop waiting for him. He got out to open the door for her as she walked to the car. How are you today? She asked, sliding down into the seat. I'm good. How about you? Are you having any second thoughts? No way, child. I'm ready to get this over with, she said, turning the radio over to 92.1, where they played gospel on Wednesday mornings. Donnie McClurkin's We Fall Down was playing, and it touched a nerve inside of Ernest. He pressed his foot down hard on the gas pedal after he merged onto the interstate. He wanted to get his mama to the hospital as quick as he could. It seemed like everybody knew his business. Slow down, son, Sheila said, noticing the speed. We're not late. Ernest eased off a little. Sorry, Mama. Thankfully, the hospital wasn't too far from the house. In less than 10 minutes, he was exiting the parkway. They pulled into the parking area right after the first verse of Sinner's Prayer. Do you want me to let you off at the front entrance? He asked. No, Ernest, I can walk, she answered, slightly agitated, wondering why he was acting so strange. After he found the closest parking spot to the entrance, he got out and hurried around to the passenger side to help his mama get out. The double doors parted as they approached, and they veered to the right where the patient registration office was located. After all the questions and paperwork were completed, a short Latino nurse wearing dark blue scrubs came to escort them to an examining room. Inside the room, there was a hospital gown lying on the bed. Change into the gown, Mrs. Shaw, and I'll be back in a few minutes, the nurse said kindly. You can go on out to the waiting room, Sheila told Ernest. I'll be fine. We'll come and get you when she's done, the nurse said, smiling at him. Ernest walked past the waiting room and straight out of the hospital. He needed to get some air, and moreover, he was too wired up to sit in a room full of people sneaking looks at each other between watching Flip This House on the TV and scanning their Facebook pages. He paced across the front of the building for a few minutes before he decided to wait in the car. He moved to a spot in the shade where there was a slight breeze, rolled down his windows, leaned his seat all the way back, and closed his eyes. The sound of his cell phone woke him up about 45 minutes later. It was the doctor saying that the procedure was over, everything was fine, and he could pick up his mother in the recuperating room. When he got there, the nurse directed him to bring his car around to the exit doors at the end of the building. When he got there, she was waiting beside his mama, who was sitting in a wheelchair with a bandage on her left arm. How do you feel? He asked, helping her into the car. Are you in pain? I'm still drugged up, so I don't feel too bad, she said in a low voice. Ernest looked at the clock on the dash. Less than 3 hours had passed, and they were on their way home. Are you hungry, Mama? He asked once they were closer to the house. My stomach is kind of queasy right now, she answered with her eyes closed. Stop at Mary's and get us some chicken plates. We can eat it later. He shook his head. I don't see how you can still eat their food after all these years. She chuckled. I want to see how it tastes without me in the kitchen. Ernest got the food while his mama waited in the car. At least it smells good, Ernest said when he returned with the plates. Smell don't mean nothing. It's got to taste right, Sheila fussed. Buttons met them at the door of the duplex, yapping and jumping up and down when they came in. Did you miss me, sweetie? Sheila said, rubbing the dog's head with her free hand. You can stop worrying. I'm back home, safe and sound. Why don't you eat a little and take a nap? Ernest suggested. I'm not tired, Sheila protested. I haven't done any work today. Sit down, Mama, he said, ignoring her stubbornness. I'll make you a plate. Sheila sat in her chair with Buttons in her lap and watched Ernest dish out the food. He had been with her all morning, but he seemed like his mind was miles and miles away. It got her thinking about the last conversation they'd had. Whatever did that friend of yours decide to do about that woman at the bank? She asked, wondering if he had listened to her advice. Ernest took a deep breath before he spoke. He agreed with what you said, but she took him out to look at some properties. Then they went by this house she had on the market, and things went a lot farther than he wanted them to. How far? She asked bluntly. All the way to the end zone. Lord have mercy, Sheila said, slapping the table and scaring Buttons. Get me a cola out of the fridge. Mama, what's wrong with you? Ernest said, totally outdone. You know drinking those cold drinks is not good for you. We just got back from the hospital to put a shunt in your arm for the kidney machine. What harm can it do me now? She asked, agitated. It doesn't matter, he said, getting her a glass of water. Never mind, she said, gathering her composure. Your friend had my nerves going there for a minute. Anyway, what's done is done, but he shouldn't let it go no further. He needs to lose that woman's number. What if she comes through with the loan? Things can still work out all right. He should know that money has strings attached. If that rump down the field was good to her, she's going to want to have a replay. So if she comes through, you don't think he should accept the loan? No, I don't, Sheila said firmly. Your friend has stepped in some shit. Best he take his shoes off and walk away before he tracks it all through his home and his job. Ernest looked at Buttons, who was staring back at him, and knew his mama was right. The last 72 hours had given Ernest some perspective on his situation. After talking to his mama and considering everything she had said, he was convinced that Eva was trouble. Definitely the kind he didn't need. It was back to square one as far as he was concerned. He would start all over again with a new application at another bank. The complication was Eva had been blowing up his cell phone for almost a week. He had been ignoring all of her calls and trying his best not to think about the ideal space that she had shown him in the Gulch. On Tuesday morning, he drove to the Titans headquarters in Metro Center, where he had started coming to give Vince his weekly cut and a shave. He parked and got out the duffel bag he carried in his trunk. It was packed with a clipper set, drape, combs and brushes, a mixing kit for his shaving cream, and a hand vacuum for cleanup. His straight razor was always on him. Coming to this complex always left him disconcerted. Everything about it was first class. If it wasn't for that first mistake, he might have been there under completely different circumstances. He was happy for Vince and his success, but he was damn tired of looking in on how the other half lives. Being invited for a few hours and then having to leave, it was even harder today with his dream back on the shelf. "What's up, dude?" Vince said, getting up and greeting him with a handshake and a shoulder bump when he walked in his office. "Man, more than you would believe," Ernest said, still not quite believing it himself. "What you got going on?" Vince said, slipping out of his suit coat. Ernest unzipped his duffel bag and put on his barber's smock. "It's that chick I told you about. The one who's getting me to hook up," he said while placing the paper strip and drape around Vince's neck. "Oh, man, don't tell me you hit it." Ernest lined up all his tools on a towel on the desk and began working on Vince's cut. "She was showing me some spots for the spa. Then she took me to this house out in Brentwood. It was like I had to do it to close the deal." Vince started laughing. "You're right, man. I don't believe it." "I'm serious, man. It's not like you're thinking. She showed me this place in the Gulch that would be perfect for my shop before we went to the house. She said the loan was guaranteed, but I hadn't seen any money yet. I felt like if I shut her down, she might not come through. Now she's been blowing up my phone." "Oh, shit, you got your hands full on that." "My mom said I should forget about all of it and go to another bank." "It might not be that deep," Ben said lightly. "She's a grown woman. She probably just wanted to get her freak on. She's trying to get paid too. Business is business." "That makes sense, but the whole thing has me on edge. She's bold as hell." "What's the name of her company?" "Her card says Hamilton Realty." "Hold up a minute and I'll have my lawyer check it out." Vince reached for his phone and made a call to his lawyer. "That'll work, man," Ernest said, finishing his cut. "No problem. He'll get back to me within a few minutes. So anyway, how was old girl?" "Close your mouth so I can do your shave." While he worked, Ernest told Vince about his mom preparing for dialysis and how she seemed to be taking it in stride. He was done and packing up his things when Vince's phone rang. It was his lawyer. He chewed the inside of his jaw nervously while they talked. Vince listened, nodded, and then hung up. "She's completely legit, man. Her company is worth several $1 million, and her husband is at the top of the food chain at Pinnacle Financial. I wouldn't even worry about the deal," he said, putting his suit coat back on. "The money is in the bank." "It's a lot to think about," Ernest said, not completely convinced. "We'll talk later." When Ernest got to the parking lot at King Cut, he could see a police cruiser in front of the door and Leon standing outside with an officer. He cursed under his breath, knowing that whatever had gone down, it wasn't good. He scanned the outside of the shop and didn't see any sign of cracked glass. Then, when he parked perpendicular to the shop, he saw the windshield on Leon's car. In the sunlight, the pattern of the shattered lines through the glass gleamed like the facets of a diamond. Ernest hung back until the cop finished his report before he went to the door. "Man, what happened to your car?" he asked Leon as if he didn't already know. "My battery quit last night. Andrea had some late clients, and when we left, it wouldn't start. Neither of us had jumper cables, so she gave me a ride home. I rode the bus in this morning, and this is what I found. The cops told me they were shooting out here last night." "Damn," Ernest said, shaking his head at the car. Something clicked in his head. Maybe it was the last straw. The sight of the bullet hole reminded him of all the reasons he wanted to cut his ties in the hood. He had to make that move. These new millennial thugs were too hard to be around. It was time for him to go somewhere more peaceful and prosperous, where he could start something bigger and better. "Sorry that happened, man," he told Leon. "Me too," Leon groaned. "I don't have nothing but liability on my car." "Don't sweat it, man. I'll get you a new windshield," Ernest said, going into the shop. He went straight back to his office and called Eva. She answered with a hello that sounded like it had ice all over it. "I want to apologize for not getting back with you sooner," he said, sincerely trying to smooth things over. "Did you get my messages?" she asked with the edge still in her voice. "I saw that you had called, but I haven't had a chance to listen to my voicemails." Eva wasn't about to let him get off that easy. "Is this how you handle your business?" she snapped. "It's a little unprofessional for my taste." Not under normal circumstances, Ernest said without calling her out on her own version of professionalism. My mother has been having some serious health issues. Please accept my apology for not returning your call sooner. I'm sorry to hear that, Eva said, warming up some. I was beginning to think that you weren't interested or had changed your mind. Absolutely not. I'm very interested and I want to get my project moving at full speed. Can you come by my office this evening? She asked with an alluring tone. No doubt, I'll be there. I'll text you the address. Be here at 7, she said before hanging up. No more second guessing, he thought. Why was I tripping so hard? She didn't mention anything about what happened in Brentwood. After all, he wasn't getting anything free, and she wasn't buying him. It was a loan, a business transaction with a legitimate firm. Once the papers were signed, he wouldn't have to deal with Eva at all. Later, Eva smiled as she watched Ernest sign the loan agreement. Now she had him exactly where she wanted him. Whether he realized it or not, she was the one who held the purse strings to his project. His ignoring of her phone calls let her know that he hadn't learned the rules to the game yet, but he seemed relatively intelligent. He would learn fast. Ernest wasn't stupid. Every page of every document that he signed was stored in his head like a picture. Even details he wasn't conscious of at the moment could be pulled out in later study. At first glance, the terms of the loan were cutthroat, but he expected that. It was straightforward with no fine print necessary. He noted that the funds were to be drawn from a subsidiary of Pinnacle Financial and not the bank itself. Repayment was to begin 6 weeks from today, and the consequences of a default on the loan would be the seizing of his property and the real estate which were deemed as collateral. None of those things bothered him. It was a home stretch, and Ernest was feeling like the winning jockey at the finish line of the Kentucky Derby. He had pulled off the long shot of his life. Still, he knew there was no time to bask in his victory. He would have to expedite the whole process of outfitting his shop without breaking the bank. His usual mantra would not change. Don't stress it, make it work. He signed the last page, closed up the folder, and slid it across the desk in front of her. I'm glad that part of it is over, he said with a sigh. This is a great opportunity for me. For the both of us, she said, smiling as she placed the papers in the top drawer of the desk. Ernest stood up to leave and offered his hand to shake on the deal. Instead of taking it, Eva walked around to the front of her desk and in one quick motion hopped on top of it and pulled her dress up to her waist. Ernest took a step back, a little shocked, but not totally surprised. She definitely couldn't be described as shy or inhibited. I prefer to keep the arrangement on the professional basis, he said, holding his hands up. I can be a best friend on this project or not, she said with a no-holds-barred tone. I'm not here to make friends, Ernest said, taking offense. I'm here to make money. Eva didn't blink. All I'm saying is, if I'm happy, you'll be happy. I wouldn't want you to lose your option on the lease in the Gulch. With that, Ernest got the message loud and clear. The neurons in his brain were firing like rockets, searching for a soft target. He didn't see an out clause on the contract he just signed, but that didn't necessarily mean much. If the deal was solid, he could take his chances on another agent and keep looking for a comparable location, except he had had his mind settled on the one in the Gulch. Then he dropped his head in capitulation, refusing to look at her. Then he took off his sport coat, undid his belt buckle and the fly of his pants, and snatched off her panties. And that was chapter 7. Okay then. All right, Ernest and Eva. It's on. So I want to thank you again for joining me on Keeping It Copacetic. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to hear some comments about what you all think about the book so far. Shortcut. It's available on Amazon in print or ebook if you'd like to read along with me. And until the next time, I will see you again for chapter 8. Keep safe and don't forget we are keeping it copacetic. Take care.